I remember this so vividly. It happened on the second week of class. Because the first 2 weeks of math class, didn't they always take it easy on you, you know? They were like, previously on math, you know? They just like gave you the greatest hits. They were like, remember 2 + 2 = 4? Wasn't that fun and easy? Remember Bobby has 5 apples? He gives 3 apples to Sylvia? Now looking back, it's like, what do you mean he gives 3 apples? He just gives them to her, no questions asked? No one's trying to make a buck here, you know? Realistically, that problem would be like, Bobby has 10 billion apples. He sends 90% of them off to an offshore bank account to escape paying apple taxes. Meanwhile, Sylvia hasn't seen fruit in months. Has to set up a GoFundMe to pay for her brother's liver transplant. And you're like, I'm 10, what's happening? My teacher's like, you're ready for algebra, that's what's happening. And she turned around, we're on the board. She was like, all right, x minus 9 = 3, solve for x. And I was like, okay, I think I solved it. X is not supposed to be there at all, because last I checked, letters is words. And now you're telling me that letters is math. And it feels kind of wrong and sinful, you know? I had a very bigoted reaction to this. I kind of felt like a right-wing talk radio host, you know? Like, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I remember when men were men and numbers were numbers, you know? Words were words. Now you got these degenerate letters cavorting around, identifying as numbers. I mean, it's a slippery slope. What's next? What, are you gonna tell me that shapes is math too? My teacher was like, I have bad news for you. Shapes is totally math too. Here's your homework, actually. It's a circle. How much? What's the diameter? How much circle is there inside of this circle? I'm like, hello, police? My teacher is asking me satanic riddles. Why, yes, I am talking into my hand right now. I figure shapes is math. There's obviously no rules anymore. Maybe hands is phone as well. Now that we're just saying what things are, and that's what they are. My teacher's like, calm down. Try the next problem. I'm like, okay, I see a triangle. She's like, okay, now prove it. Do you know that they're doing this to children? They're asking children to prove that shapes are shapes. And I was like, okay, well, never mind then. That's not a triangle, because I don't know how to prove that to you. I retract my statement regarding the triangle. The teacher's like, well, it is a triangle. I'm like, okay, then I just proved it right now. Because you just admitted that it's a triangle. Therefore, that's a triangle. I tricked you. You look super dumb right now. And then she said the worst thing I've ever heard. She said, you have to show your work. Oh, remember when the teacher would ask you to show your work and you did not have any work to show? So you just got all vague and philosophical, like, behold the triangle. Who can say what makes a triangle? A triangle, it is a mystery as old as the universe itself. One can only behold and look at it and go, that's a that's a triangle. And then I got an F, and that's another letter that ruins your life. You guys have been nice. Thank you. My name's Pedro Salinas. Have a good night.